So GM buckled. They gave $5,000 donation to the organization in 2007. The next year, he got another $5,000 from them. GM spokesman calls the National Action Network a worthy organization. GM closes dealerships when they don't make money. They don't care what color you are. They're about the dollar. If you're not making enough money, if you're not doing the work the right way, they're going to close you. But Al Sharpton is a race-baiting media whore. No getting around it. You can close other ones, but if you close a black-owned dealership, I'm going to protest. I'm going to tell everybody you close down a black dealership that you're racist. We're going to do that. Where's my money? Daimler Chrysler in 2003, Sharpton picketed Daimler Chrysler's Chicago car show and threatened a boycott over alleged racial bias in car loans, accusing the car maker of institutional racism. Lo and behold, the next year, Chrysler began supporting the National Action Network's conferences, which include panels on corporate responsibility and civil rights and black tie dinners to honor Martin Luther King. Saying, yeah, if you don't do all of this and support the black cause and hold a thing for Martin Luther King and do all this here other stuff. In 2007, Sharpton gave Chrysler an award for corporate excellence. Yeah, in other words, for coughing over the money, for being an easy one to squeeze money from, to shake down. Honda in 2003, Sharpton targeted American Honda for not hiring enough African Americans in management. He says, we support those that support us. Sharpton and the Reverend Horace Sheffield III, president of NAN's Michigan chapter, sent a letter to American Honda. We cannot be silent while African Americans spend hard-earned dollars with a company that does not hire, promote, or do business with us in a statistically significant manner. 2 months after the execs met with Sharpton, the car maker began to sponsor NAN's events and continues to pay each year. They don't have to hire black managers. Managers are generally in every corporation promoted from within. If you're black and you can do the job, you get promotions. This wasn't about getting promotions. It wasn't about getting blacks hired. It was about shaking them down for money. Hawkins Food Group. LaVan Hawkins, a partner in Hawkins Food Group, which owns and operates fast food franchises nationwide, said HFG hired Sharpton as a consultant because the Reverend skillfully persuades CEOs by wielding the statistic that African Americans spend $703 billion a year. So Sharpton says, hey, I'll tell them to eat somewhere else. We spend $700 billion at fast food places. You don't hire me as a consultant. I'll tell them to go eat somewhere else. Shakedown. You or I would go to jail if we pulled this crap. MGM Mirage. Sharpton vowed to call a national boycott against MGM Mirage in Vegas if they refused to meet with him to discuss an alleged racism in hiring. MGM named NAN one of its diversity partners now. Walmart. Since 2005, Walmart has given yearly support to NAN, including sponsorship of a conference in April of 2008 without disclosing amounts. In 2006, in a case calling of the pot calling the kettle black. Black? Did I say black? Jesse Jackson accused Walmart of buying silence. Anheuser-Busch states on its website that NAN gave between $100,000 and $500,000 to NAN in 2007. They're shakedown artists. That's all these people are. Him and Jesse Jackson as well. If you want to stop spending your money with corporations that cave to these shakedown artists, because Jesse Jackson was the one screaming in this protest, what do we want? Dead cops. When do we want it? Now. That's what this man is about. And why has this piece of crap been to the White House 80 times in the last 6 years. Stop spending your money at Colgate-Palmolive, Anheuser-Busch, Macy's, PepsiCo, General Motors, Walmart, Johnson & Johnson, American Honda, Hawkins Food Group, and the MGM. Cut them off where it hurts. Folks, stick with us. We got a lot more coming up. We'll be right back.
A penny for your thoughts? Sorry, ideas are priceless. AM 1050 KCAA.
Tom O'Halloran has a not-so-common core spelling lesson for the Obama administration. Ready? There is no K in America.
There's kids that can't pray in school, $100 tanks of gas. I can tell you right now, this country ain't supposed to be like that. No, that ain't my America. That ain't this country's roots. You wanna slam, hold on to Sam, but I ain't letting you. Yeah, I'm mad as hell, and you know I still bleed red, white, and blue. They ain't us, and that ain't my America. Oh no, that ain't my America. No, 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 no. That ain't my America. Oh no.
Welcome back. This is the fastest hour on radio. This is the Tuesday night edition of the Patriot Radio Show. Please join me again tomorrow for the Wednesday night edition. Thursday over at We Are America Radio. That's on WayneDupree.com. And then back here on Friday for Jihad on America. Up next, let's talk about Cuba. Obama tried to unilaterally change diplomatic relations with Cuba about a week and a half ago, stating that we're going to open an embassy there, we're going to restore relations, totally forgetting that he can't unilaterally do squat legally, that it takes money to open an embassy, that in order to do a treaty with with a country, you actually have Senate buy-in, which he doesn't have. So as much as I'd love to see the Cuban cigars flowing into this country, don't hold your breath, folks. But in addition to being off base on what authority he has to do this stuff, I want to cover some lies, some outright lies that he told in his televised speech about this. First off, there was no mention of the Cuban Missile Crisis. He states, I was born in 1961, just over 2 years after Fidel took power in Cuba. Over the next several decades, the relationship between our countries played out against the backdrop of the Cold War and America's steadfast opposition to communism. This didn't just happen. Cuba's role in helping the Soviet Union project a direct threat into the United States mainland is carefully omitted. Although Obama did work in references to his own birth, as though that was a starting point of time. Secondly, suggesting that the president can have established an embassy on his own. He stated, going forward, the United States will reestablish an embassy in Havana, and high-ranking officials will visit Cuba. Now, it has to be, like I said, funded by Congress. It has to have an ambassador, which is going to have to be approved by the Senate. None of that's going to happen or should happen, especially when you consider Obama's success in reopening embassies. Remember, he opened an embassy in Syria. He did that. Syria, Benghazi, 4 dead Americans, remember? Thirdly, no mention of Cuba's role in repressing the democracy abroad. Obama says, Cuba has sent hundreds of healthcare workers to Africa to fight Ebola. Well, yeah, but he also sent experts in repression to Venezuela, Bolivia, Ecuador. Cuban agents have also allegedly beaten and raped Venezuelan protesters earlier this year. For decades, Cuba's assisted guerrilla armies abroad, fomenting bloody revolutions, propping up communist regimes in some places. They continue to do these things. And there's no way Congress is going to put their thumbprint, their endorsement on opening up relations with a man like this. Hero to Obama or not. Fourthly, he suggested that Cuba does not support terrorism. At the time when we were focused on threats from al-Qaeda to ISIS, a nation that meets our conditions and renounces the use of terrorism should not face sanctions. So he said. And yet Cuba was caught only last year smuggling missile equipment to North Korea, the dictatorship that targeted America in this cyber attack just last week. They are terrorists. They aid and support terrorists wherever they may be. Fifthly, a false claim that the U.S. is to blame for the lack of information in Cuba. Obama says, I believe in the free flow of information. Unfortunately, our sanctions on Cuba have denied Cubans access to technology that has empowered individuals all around the globe. Now, that's patently untrue. That's the biggest lie of all. The guy that got released, Gross, he was detained for trying to help Cubans access technology. The reasons Cubans lack new information, they lack telecommunication tools, is because the regime censors them brutally. Not because of the embargo. It's because of the communist regime. Sixthly, false promise to consult Congress on Cuba when his administration broke that promise. Obama says, as these changes unfold, I look forward to engaging Congress in an honest and serious debate about lifting the embargo. And yet when Marco Rubio, Republican from Florida, asked the White House official Tony Blinken whether the administration planned any major Cuba policy changes, Blinken, now a Deputy Secretary of State, he lied and said any change would become in consultation with Congress. And yet here we are. Eight, false commitment to the principle of changing policies that do not work. Obama said, I do not believe that we can keep doing the same thing for over 5 decades and expect a different result. If Obama didn't really believe that, we wouldn't see the administration pursuing policies whose failure is already evident as a matter of historical record, such as high taxes, economic redistribution, socialized medicine, union-dominated schools, restrictive labor, and government regulations, and yada, 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 yada. Obama had no problem with policy staying in place. It was just a policy that he didn't like. 9, conflating the collapse of Castro regime with the collapse of Cuba, Obama stated, moreover, it does not serve America's interests or the Cuban people to try to push Cuba toward collapse. It's a false binary choice. By failing to differentiate between the regime and the country, Obama signals his intention to allow the Castros and their heirs to entrench their power, abandoning the cause of freedom and reform, just as he did with the mullahs in Iran in 2009. And lastly, he was falsely identifying the U.S. as a colonial power, part of his anti-American rhetoric. We've seen him use this one time and time again. He said, others have seen us as a form of colonizer, intent on controlling your future. Let us leave behind the legacy of both colonization and communism, of tyranny and drug cartels, dictators and sham elections. Like yours. America actually liberated Cuba from the Spanish colonialism. And although U.S. influenced the island heavily for decades afterwards, Obama's attempted moral equivalence between colonization and communist tyranny is an absurdly false one. And finally, Obama borrowed a quote from the Cuban literary giant